All right, today we are diving into a worldview that, well, it pretty much challenges everything we think we know about where we come from. It's a perspective that says our history didn't start here on Earth. Instead, it uses this secret, otherworldly history as a lens to critique, well, everything from our governments to our social media feeds.
So, let's just start with this one big question. What if our entire human story is just the last few pages of a much, much older book? A story that kicks off not on Earth, but way out on Venus, something like 600 million years ago. A story about beings who had a grand plan to build a brand new civilization, right here where you're sitting. This one idea, it's the bedrock for the entire cosmic critique we're going to explore.
So first up, let's pull back the curtain on this secret history of Earth, a story that, in this view, unfolds over hundreds of millions of years.
Okay, the first thing that probably jumps out at you here is just the sheer scale. We're not talking thousands of years, we're talking hundreds of millions. The plan for an earthly civilization gets hatched 600 million years ago. Then, fast forward a couple hundred million years and you get the first physical incarnation of a supreme being called El Cantare. A bit later, around 150 million years ago, a second incarnation shows up to guide humanity. But this is also when things get complicated, because around 120 million years ago, a really powerful angel named Lucifer falls from grace, and that event sets the stage for a struggle that defines everything that follows.
And Lucifer's fall? Well, that basically kicks off the central drama of human existence, the origin story of good and evil itself.
So, what's the big idea here? It really boils down to this conflict between our spiritual purpose and, well, all the stuff that distracts us here on Earth. On one side, you have the soul's real job, to train itself, to grow, and to help build a kind of utopia right here. But on the other side, you have evil, which this teaching says comes from our earthly attachments, getting obsessed with money, status, or superficial things like race and gender. When we focus on all that, we start to forget who we really are and what our mission is.
And this is where Lucifer comes back into the picture. See, his fall wasn't just some myth. It was a cosmic power play. He got consumed by jealousy of God, lost the fight, and was thrown into the underworld. But it didn't just disappear. He became the king down there. According to this view, he is, quite literally, the number one of hell, the starting point for a very real force of evil.
So what even is hell in this framework? Forget the fire and brimstone you might be thinking of. Here, it's a specific realm, founded by Lucifer, and its residents are the spirits of people who abuse their power on Earth. We're talking corrupt kings, politicians who lied to everyone, and leaders who steered humanity in the wrong direction. They're the ones who make up the legions of hell, and they're still trying to mislead us, just from another dimension.
All right, so we have this epic spiritual history. Now, let's see how this framework is used to launch a kind of divine critique of our worldly systems, judging everything from our politics to our media.
At the very heart of this critique is a choice, a really big one. Do we follow God's law, which is supposed to be based on eternal truth, or do we follow man's law, which, we just make up ourselves? The argument here is that relying only on our own human laws is a huge mistake. Because without that higher, divine standard, our rules and values can be totally flawed and even manipulated for power and profit, leading whole societies down a bad path.
And this idea gets applied directly to politics. And interestingly, no system gets a free pass. A democracy, for instance, can totally fail if the majority of people are faithless or just acting out of pure selfishness. They can pass laws that actually make society worse. And on the flip side, a totalitarian leader can basically turn themselves into a false god, creating their own version of hell on earth through pure oppression.
In fact, the source material lays out a specific playbook for what this totalitarianism looks like. It's pretty clear-cut. Ruling through violence, using secret police to watch everyone, sending anyone who disagrees to concentration camps, and, this part is key, constantly inventing new enemies to justify all the oppression.
Now, this critique isn't just about old-school political models. It zooms right into the 21st century, warning us that new technologies are creating some really unprecedented threats to our freedom.
The teaching even has a name for this modern threat: AI totalitarianism. Think of it as the old playbook, just supercharged with modern tech. Instead of just secret police on the streets, regimes now have AI, mass surveillance cameras, and drones to achieve total social control. It's a system where any kind of dissent can be flagged and crushed almost instantly. But it's not just governments we have to worry about, according to this view. There's another related threat called surveillance capitalism. This is where the power belongs to giant tech companies. You know the names: Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon. They build up unbelievable wealth and influence simply by managing all of our data. And that creates this brand new center of power that's totally private and has zero public accountability.
So what does this new power actually look like in the real world? The source points to a pretty stark example: the ability of these companies to deplatform and essentially censor a sitting world leader. The argument is that when a handful of unelected executives can silence a president, they're basically acting like a government, wielding incredible power over what we see and say, but without any of the checks and balances we'd expect.
So, after this huge critique of, well, everything, our spiritual history, our politics, our technology, the teaching brings it all back home. What's the point of it all? What is our ultimate purpose in the face of all this chaos?
And here it is. This is the central takeaway. This world, with all of its problems and all of its struggles, is not the end of the line. According to this worldview, Earth is basically a temporary training ground. It's a school for the soul. And all these challenges we're facing, they're just part of the curriculum.
So if this world is a training ground, how are you supposed to navigate it? The teaching offers a kind of three-step guide. First, have faith. Try to reconnect with a belief in the divine. Second, consult wisdom. Don't just throw out the thousands of years of spiritual knowledge that humanity has collected. And third, use that faith and wisdom to choose correctly, to figure out what's actually good in a world that's throwing a million different values at you.
And all of that leaves us with one final, really powerful question. In a world full of conflicting human laws and scary new technologies, what is the right standard to judge it all by? Is it our own flawed rules, or is it something higher? This explainer has laid out one very specific answer to that question, and it's one that's definitely worth thinking about.